children's illustrator is catching some heat for her way of remembering Michael Brown during the one-year anniversary of the shooting in Ferguson, Missouri. Now, Mary Engelbreit, in my opinion, didn't do anything controversial, but it turned into a huge controversy after she posted this photo on social media. Okay, so it's an illustration that she did, and it says, "No one should have to teach their children this." And of course, the newspaper says, "Hands up, don't shoot," and the mother is crying, teaching her young son, what the realities are of police brutality in America. Now, when people saw this, they weren't too happy about it, and she got a lot of criticism, but what I love about her is that she did not step down. She did not allow them to intimidate her in any way. She posted another illustration, which I also love. Let's take a quick look at that. "I will not stay silent so that you can stay comfortable." So what kind of criticism was she getting? Well, she did post the original illustration on her Facebook page, and I'm just going to read a few of the comments, although I also want to note that there were a few people that supported her as well. Some of the negative comments included the following. "This is ridiculous," one person writes. "I'm very saddened by the fact that I love your artwork and have supported you since I was a young girl. And unfortunately, that has stopped today when I saw this post. Racism is alive and well because of people like you and others trying to divide this nation by race. This young man was not shot because of the color of his skin. Educate yourself before making something like this." Another person wrote, "Shame on you, Mary. Anything to make a buck these days. A huge former fan and follower of all things me." I know grammar's not their strong suit, but whatever. I'm just going to move on, not focus on that too much.
Yeah, no, you can't spend too much time on that when it comes to comments. This is very sad because ultimately what she was trying to do was commemorate a young man's life.
Yes.
And obviously it's controversial, but the ultimate sentiment was we don't want to have to teach our children to fear the police. We don't, and nobody should have to worry about having that, there's so many conversations you have to have with your child about growing up, the birds and the bees. I mean, those kind of things that are beautiful and nostalgic, but then there are so many black families that feel like they have to sit their children down and have a very real conversation about dealing with police and the kind of outcomes that could result in violence and death.
What's interesting is a lot of minority parents do have that conversation with their children, especially considering the current climate with police brutality. And I feel like the thought process of those against them think that they think, these people are taught to disrespect police officers. A lot of them are taught to walk on eggshells because if they don't,
respect.
Exactly. And I just think that it's interesting that such a benign illustration could lead to so much hatred and controversy.
Well, and for it to get twisted, that one comment discussed the fact that she was dividing our nation by race. And this is the problem is that often, I don't know the race of the woman who commented, white people are very uncomfortable with talking about race because they feel like, let's just act all Pollyanna and put our rose-colored glasses on and pretend like we don't actually have the issues we have.
Right.
And the problem is when you do that, you literally are putting on blinders. You are colorblind and you're refusing to see what is institutionalized, what is, a social infrastructure of racism that, and so the problem is that people want to just shake this flag of I don't see it. I don't even see color. And it does not work that way.
It doesn't
We'll never make any progress, and you have to own your own whiteness and everyone has to own the fact that racism in this country is not, a null and void subject. And so the fact that she wants to create, this kind of sentiment and put that out on the internet and get the kind of flack she does is really sad. But I so appreciate her quick illustrative comeback.
Look, whenever there's money involved and when someone's career is on the line, I think a lot of people do back down. And I think a lot of people are afraid of stirring the pot or making a political point that might get them into some trouble. And the fact that she's standing up to her own fan base, I think, is admirable. But I think that you hit the nail on the head when you talk a little bit about how, discussing these issues doesn't lead to dividing the country. Discussing these issues could lead to a solution if we have an honest and frank conversation about it. But people are unwilling to have that honest and frank conversation about it. It's a way of deflecting and kind of placing the blame on someone who actually wants to solve these issues.
And in fact, if you read her caption, Mary's caption under the original illustration, she actually applauds, I believe, the governor of Missouri for instituting this whole focus on police training for conflict resolution.
Right.
So we're talking about solution-based ideas and concepts for the police so that they can interact with civilians in a way that doesn't result in this kind of tragedy.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what she was celebrating in addition to this young man's life. And what could possibly be wrong with that?
You can't make a political point, regardless of how benign that political point may be, without getting some sort of backlash right now.
This is true.
And the thing is, we're more divided than ever, if you ask me. And I think part of the reason why is because of the discourse and the way that people are handling these situations. I think that as soon as you talk about issues like racism or sexism, any type of social inequality, there are groups of people who are not guilty. They're not actually playing a role in that inequality, but they feel like they're being blamed for it. So they have like this defense knee-jerk reaction where it's like, no, I'm going to deny that this is even an issue because they feel like they're being blamed. No one's blaming you. If you get that defensive, there's something
deep-seated there.
Yeah.
No, I agree. There was somebody commented on my Twitter after one of our segments here and was like, they said, your white guilt personalized. And I was like, first of all, I think you meant personified. And if I'm, and it's not, I'm not talking, just if I'm willing to recognize my own white privilege, that doesn't mean that I also am like straddled with some sort of white guilt.
Right.
And I think that there's a real conflict with people not understanding the difference between the two. That you have the ability to recognize when you are privileged in a situation versus like, oh, I'm some pathetic person who just walks around apologizing all the time. It's not about that. It's about recognition so that we can all talk, like you said, in a very candid way that hopefully will advance all of us and make this country a much more open place to discuss the sort of inequality that we can't just like brush under the rug anymore because we're seeing it pop up in just truly tragic ways.
Yeah. I'm tired of people not wanting to discuss things because it makes them uncomfortable.
And they're adults. Yes, which is why
Mary discuss shit that makes you uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah. And that's why I love that a children's illustrator has to teach such an adult lesson.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm not going to stay silent so you can be comfortable.
Yeah.